There's something in the air in Toronto, and it's not just the summer heat. It's that feeling every Leafs fan knows all too well, when something big is about to happen, but no one dares say it out loud. The city seems to breathe differently. Insiders start whispering more than speaking, and the blue and white community finds itself split between hope and fear. 3 major events have quietly shaken the Maple Leafs universe in recent days. None of them were officially confirmed with fanfare, but each one carries the potential to alter the franchise's destiny. And if you followed this team with a tight chest since the days of Maple Leaf Gardens, if you remember the broken promises, the impossible comebacks, and eternal search for a new beginning, then you know this kind of silence, this exact moment, often comes right before the storm. But don't worry, we're going to cover everything, with respect for your memory as a fan, with a critical eye on every move from management, and with that kind of care that only someone who lives with this crest on their chest can understand. What's at stake now isn't just another season. It's what comes after it. So before we begin, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and turn on the notification bell. Because if there's one thing Leafs fans deserve, it's to be in the know. News number 1. Have you ever felt like a story was ending before anyone even admitted it? In Toronto, that feeling has become almost routine. Every offseason, every new promise arriving with stars in their eyes, every superstar leaving under boos or silence. Leafs fans are forced to look in the mirror of a story that keeps repeating itself. But this time, we're not talking about Mitch Marner. That chapter, as painful as it was, has already been turned. The name now echoing, softer like a whisper, despite still playing at a high level. Long-time fans represents a short-term instantly. Nick Robertson, the kid who for years was seen as the future, the fastest shot in the organization, the scoring touch from the second round of the 2019 draft, who put up 55 goals in 46 games in juniors. The piece that was supposedly going to complete the puzzle. But now, after 69 games, 15 goals, and an increasingly limited role in the lineup, the question no one wants to ask is looming. Does Nick Robertson still belong to the Toronto Maple Leafs? Because amid the quiet reconstruction underway at Scotiabank Arena after Marner's departure, something has shifted. Something deep. Something structural. General Manager Brad Treliving has already started shaking the foundation. And even without making noise the way Kyle Dubas used to, he sent a message. This team will change. Nicholas Roy arrived in the package from Vegas. Matias Maxelli came to bring speed and smarts to the bottom 6. Dakota Joshua adds muscle, energy, and a little chaos to the fourth line. These might seem like small moves, but they speak volumes. They signal an identity trying to emerge. A more physical, more direct DNA. Less reliant on skilled stars, more committed to the system. So in this new map, where exactly does Nick Robertson fit? He's not a grinder. He's not physical. He's not a defensive specialist. And unlike Knies, for example, he doesn't seem to have earned the coach's trust for heavy minutes. His talent is undeniable, especially his shot. But he needs space. He needs freedom. He needs top 6 minutes. And today, with Nylander, Knies, Bertuzzi, Maxelli, Jarnkrok, Roy, and maybe even Cowan or McMahon competing for minutes, that space has simply vanished. That's why the rumors are back. And not just speculative whispers from an impatient fan base. They're coming from sources like Daily Faceoff Live, where journalist Matt Larkin raised the question. With arbitration approaching, are the Leafs quietly laying the groundwork for a trade? Because as logical as it might seem to keep him, after all, 15 goals on a low salary is gold for a cap-strapped team. It feels like the relationship is worn out. Too many frustrations, too many injuries, too many promises, and not enough chances. If Robertson were in a place like Anaheim, Chicago, or Arizona, maybe he gets 17 or 18 minutes a night. Maybe he'd become a 25-goal scorer easily because he can shoot. He has offensive instincts. He has a hunger for goals. But in Toronto, the stage has always felt too big for him. Or maybe he arrived too late, when the spotlight was already shining on other pieces. Or too early, when the team was desperate to win at any cost and couldn't afford mistakes with its young players. The irony? This is the first summer where some analysts aren't predicting Robertson's exit. But maybe that's exactly why it's going to happen. Because now, With the pressure slightly reduced after Marner's goodbye, the Leafs have some breathing room to make surgical decisions. And maybe the best decision is to set Nick Robertson free. Free the player. Free the team. Free the narrative that's followed him since the day he was drafted. And this is where it hits hard, Leafs Nation. Because every Toronto fan knows this story. The talent that leaves and shines elsewhere. How many times have we seen it? Mason Marchment, Alexander Steen, Tuukka Rask, names that, for one reason or another, never found space here and ended up thriving far from the city that was supposed to believe in them. And when that happens, it's not just management that feels a sting. It's the fans. The fans who believed, who defended the kid online, who begged for more minutes, who saw flashes of brilliance and thought, give him a real chance and he'll explode. But the NHL doesn't wait. The Leafs' time is now. They can't afford to stumble on gambles anymore. They need instant production. They need fit. And maybe Nick Robertson just isn't that. If he stays, he'll have to reinvent himself. Accept a third-line role with fewer minutes. Maybe become a situational sniper, coming in only during power plays or when the team is desperate for goals. But if he's traded for a left-handed defenseman, a reliable face-off center, or even a future pick, the feeling will be one of loss with a touch of relief, because the story between Robertson and the Leafs was never complete. It always felt like a broken rehearsal, a good idea poorly executed. And sometimes the best decisions are the ones that close unresolved chapters. So now I ask you, Leafs Nation, would you trade Nick Robertson? Even knowing he might become yet another ghost we watch dominate the playoffs, wearing another jersey? Or do you still believe this story can be rewritten? That the kid with the deadly shot can still find his place in Toronto? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. News number 2. The city of Toronto has seen it all. Suffering, hope, rebuilds, promises that were never fulfilled. But what happened behind the scenes in the NHL over the past few days struck a deep chord in the soul of a fan base that, year after year, refuses to give up. Mitch Marner wasn't just another hockey player. He was a hometown kid. The childhood dream come true in blue and white. The smiling face that danced past offenders like he was playing street hockey. And suddenly, he was gone. But before the mourning over Marner's departure could settle into permanent sorrow, a new move shook the Leafs community. Management didn't wait for the fans to finish their morning coffee. Nicholas Roy now wears blue. A reliable, physical, experienced center. A player who, at first glance, doesn't have Marner shine, but might be exactly what the team was missing. A stabilizing force. A gear that balances, protects, and changes the tone of the conversation. This trade isn't just about the name arriving. It's about a new direction. Trading Marner was painful, maybe inevitable, but Roy is the antithesis of chaos. Where there was anxiety, now there's control. Where there was lightness, now there's weight. For years, the Leafs culture was shaped by dazzling offensive talent. Players who lit up the regular season and vanished in the playoffs. Now, the aim seems to be something else. Something more grounded. Something that bleeds less in April. And it's impossible to ignore the symbolism of his arrival. Roy, with his composed demeanor, represents a new kind of quiet leadership. A pillar. A player who may never grace the cover of a magazine, but who shows up when the lights start to flicker. He was a champion in Vegas, despite still playing at a high level that represents a short-term steady. On the ice, he doesn't seek the spotlight. He turns it off. The impact goes beyond the locker room. Within the Leafs fan community, the debate has intensified. Some feel the team is losing its offensive identity, its speed, its creativity. But others see this as the missing step. Toronto tried the flashy route. It got them as far as it could. Now they're betting on substance. Roy's presence offers entirely new tactical options for Sheldon Keefe, or whoever is behind the bench come October. He can anchor what might be the most solid third line in the NHL. He can move up in key moments. He can kill penalties. He can shut down the opponent's best players. He doesn't need to be on the score sheet to make an impact. And in a team that has lived off glamorous stats for years, that's revolutionary. This revolution, by the way, doesn't come alone. Roy's arrival fits with other decisions. Marner's exit creates room for a new generation of Leafs. Players like Matthew Knies and Easton Cowan, who now have not just space on the ice, but a new kind of support around them. Roy might not be the vocal mentor, but he's the kind of player who leads by example. He shows what it means to win, without shouting, without promising, just by delivering. And that mentality is already shifting the atmosphere. Instead of questions like, who's going to score 100 points? The city is beginning to ask, who's going to block that shot at the end of Game 6? Roy is that guy. And on a team that's tired of just being pretty and wants, finally, to be a winner, that means everything. Of course, uncertainty remains. The trade involving Marner was too big to be absorbed quietly. He was, and maybe still is, the most talented player on the roster. Losing that creativity is a risk. But the bigger risk was continuing to rely on something that no longer worked. And the Maple Leafs, after years of hesitation, finally chose a change. That change won't be instant. Roy isn't a miracle. He's a step, but maybe the most important one. The step that says, we're no longer trying to dazzle, we're trying to win. And for a franchise carrying the longest Stanley Cup drought in the NHL, that's a powerful statement. In the coming months, the team will go through more adjustments, experiments, and maybe additional trades. But the arrival of Nicholas Roy marks the point where the page truly turned. The Leafs are no longer the team of what if. They now want to be the team of this is how we did it. And when April comes and the games stop being shows and start becoming battles again, Roy will be there. Silent, steady, reliable, not promising anything, just ready. Toronto needed this, maybe more than ever. News number 3. What once seemed like a minor piece of behind-the-scenes speculation is starting to take on greater weight within the Leafs community. This is no longer just about finding a complementary name to reinforce a defensive core. Now, the debate runs deeper, more strategically. Could the Toronto Maple Leafs be searching for Morgan Rielly's successor? That possibility still sounds like an exaggeration to many. After all, Rielly is one of the franchise's emotional and technical pillars. But management is aware of an uncomfortable truth. Time moves fast, and the team cannot afford to be caught off guard. Planning for the future of the blue and white blue line is more than caution. It's a matter of competitive survival. In recent weeks, names like Rasmus Anderson of the Calgary Flames and veteran Erik Karlsson of the Pittsburgh Penguins have surfaced frequently in conversations. Both would be immediate high-impact additions. Anderson for his age and defensive consistency. Karlsson for his ability to change the offensive tempo with a single pass. But there's one common denominator that scares any general manager: the cost. Whether in young assets, draft picks, or salary cap space, acquiring these names would demand considerable sacrifices. And maybe that's precisely why the name Bowen Byram keeps popping up on Toronto's radar with growing frequency. Byram isn't just a viable option. He represents a bridge between the present and the future. At 24 years old, with raw skill that has dazzled scouts since his draft year, he's the kind of talent you don't find every season. And even though he just signed a 2-year $12.5 million extension with the Buffalo Sabres, that doesn't mean his future is locked in Western New York. Quite the opposite. Despite still playing according to insider David represents a short-term period, the Sabres remain open to trading Byram. Even after the extension, the new deal was more of a tactical move than a definitive vote of confidence. A sort of safety net for Buffalo, who know Byram still has value and could bring back something substantial in a deal. They'd rather control the narrative than risk losing him for nothing. But deep down, there's a sense that this marriage between player and franchise may never have been the perfect fit. Since arriving in Buffalo as part of the blockbuster trade that sent Casey Middlestat to the Colorado Avalanche, Byram has shown exactly why he was a top 5 pick in the 2019 draft. His most recent season was the most solid of his career so far. 38 points in 82 games, with 7 goals and 31 assists. But more important than the numbers was a sense that he finally looked comfortable in his own skin, playing with confidence, speeding up transitions, and showcasing a refined hockey IQ worthy of a future All-Star. Still, something feels off. And maybe Toronto is the stage where he truly finds his place. The thing is, none of this will be easy. Negotiating with Buffalo is a challenge in itself, especially when dealing with a historic rivalry like the Leafs and Sabres. For Toronto, entering this kind of negotiation requires more than boldness. It demands strategic caution and serious bargaining power. Brad Treliving knows that. He also knows that Byram, despite still being young, is a costly asset. Not just because of his contract, but because of the promise of a bright future. Something teams like Buffalo rarely give up easily, especially when the suitor is a division rival. But time, as always, moves relentlessly. The Leafs' competitive window won't last forever. Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Mitch Marner, or what remains of them on the roster, depending on the latest rumors, they're all either entering or already in their prime. What's missing, and has been missing for years, is a reliable backend that can support the transition game. Someone who can combine speed, smarts, and physicality to fill the void the team so often feels when facing tougher playoff opponents. In that context, Byram is more than an opportunity. He's a potential pillar of a new defensive identity. If Toronto really does go to the table, they'll have to give up significant assets. Maybe a promising young forward, a first-round pick, and another complimentary piece. And even then, it will depend on Buffalo's willingness to negotiate within the conference, and more importantly, within the division. The regional rivalry could turn any fair offer into an insufficient one. But if there's even the slightest opening, Treliving needs to be ready to act. Because this could be the only chance to lock down an elite defenseman before the market inflates even further. This is where the time factor comes roaring back. The next few weeks will be crucial. The off-season is moving quickly, training camps are approaching, and teams are starting to shape their identities for the upcoming season. Every move, every rumor, every whisper from the insiders could spark something. And for Toronto, keeping an eye on Buffalo isn't just a matter of curiosity. It's almost an obligation. Because if Bowen Byram is truly available, he could be the kind of acquisition that doesn't just change the defensive rotation, but the long-term outlook of the entire franchise. In the end, this isn't just about replacing Morgan really. It's about laying the groundwork for a new era. One that may have already begun, quietly, between one rumor and the next. And if the Leafs want to be part of that era, they'll need to make bold decisions. Byram's name is there, waiting to be the next chapter of this quiet but deep rebuild taking shape behind the scenes in Toronto. The only question now is, does Treliving have the courage and the capital to write that chapter before another franchise does? And if you've made it this far, it's because you feel the weight and passion of being a Leafs fan. So don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Because the next big story could break at any moment, and you'll want to hear it first.